This set of episodes was streamed and recorded in between 2020 and 2021. It took me this long to upload them, partly because life happened and partly because I'm a slow video editor. Either way, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you don't, please send it to someone who will.
Am I audible? Do I sound like you can hear me clearly?
Why can't you see me? I can't see you too well, but I can hear you.
Wave your hand. Yes. I see you move. I see you move. It works. Nobody moved. Nobody moved from wherever they are. Everybody, all of you are in the right place.
Is it better? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so happy to see you, Shreevar.
I can't see you. It's so weird. Like I'm not looking at the screen, but I think this can work. Why not?
Yeah, it could, but I'm just so happy to see you. I'm almost crying.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. I always feel like the people born in 97 are like, that's how that saying goes, "Dhobi ka kutta na ghar ka na ghat ka."
Exactly.
So it's
But
basically that.
lean on the millennial side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would relate to that a lot more. Like anyone younger I just can't look at.
Exactly. Like anybody.
But I mean I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but still. Yeah, my friend Anuj actually who's watching this right now also said, told me that we're the first of Gen Z, and I was like, don't take this away from me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty great. That's what we are. We are pretty millennial.
So, when you were responsible for putting out so much information on a daily basis onto various channels, I
Yeah.
feel like you're probably the right person to ask this, which is, do you feel like we're being bombarded with information, relevant or not?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's just, I mean, every brand has an onus upon themselves that, we want to make sure that we're clutter breaking. But what happens is that when everybody's clutter breaking, everybody's clutter, right? So, I mean, of course, brands don't want to admit that. But every time, you're actually bombarding them. And of course, because it's all about real estate, right? Like people are wondering, कि यार billboards का जो जगह है, उसका करेंगे क्या? People aren't
Yeah.
really going to look at billboards anymore. So your phone is your billboard, your phone is your radio spot, everything. So just kind of, it's very soluble in your phone. Like it just boils down to everything because you can access everything. We're having this Instagram live that you can access. You can access a podcast. You can access different types of shows, anything. So that's where your real estate is. That's where your eyeballs are, and that's where the brands will come. I think it's a very natural process in those terms. Yet we're a brand which tagline, so to speak, is get offline. So we kind of tell people, and of course our outlets really aren't open or aren't available for dine-in right now, but we still urge people to have that offline connect, right? Because I think that's vital. I mean, even though of course it's essential to be online, but it's so much more essential to be offline as well.
One of the biggest reasons I ask you that question is because there's so much information. It doesn't matter whether it's relevant or not, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, at a point where you're in a lockdown and you have, you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from, or you just got laid off. You don't care if a restaurant or if any person or even me, if I'm saying that, okay, I'm doing a podcast, I feel like a lot of people won't care.
Yeah, of course.
It's
No, I mean,
not priority right now.
it's not. So that's why I think that's where there was a poll which was going on. It was on Twitter, and it was asking what are brands focusing right now on is brand safety. Like that is something which is so important right now because everybody is kind of reevaluating what they're doing, and they want to make sure that it's not just about their product. They don't want to just bombard people, but they want to add some value.
Right, right. And how do you deal with it when you're feeling overwhelmed with so much information around you?
I think meditation for me really helps. Yeah, like that's something which is kind of really come in handy, and my entire journey. I think that's what we want to discuss today itself. That happened right after college when I went for my Vipassana. So Vipassana is of course a meditation technique which I was introduced to only last year. I mean, which I performed last year was 10 days. I went to Calcutta's suburban Calcutta, and by the Ganges, of course, by the Ganga. So it was something else. It was just something else because it was 10 days. There was no talking, no writing, no self, and your last meal was at 5 o'clock, and you had to wake up at 4:30, and you used to meditate for 10 hours daily. So of course, I'm not in a position to meditate for 10 hours daily, but I try to kind of imbibe whatever little I can of the meditation that I've learned last year. So I mean, 1 hour per day is something that I look at. Yeah.
Right. And how has it helped you in whatever you can see, whatever you've noticed?
I mean, it's really, I'll tell you one song which really came to mind when I was conducting. Can you all hear me? Sorry, I just tried to think the camera. Is it? You can see me?
I think it's clearer now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's a song by John Mayer called "Clarity," right? This
Yeah.
is this is one song, and I mean, of course, I mean, we've heard it long back, but it kind of came back to me after I meditated, after I just ended my entire journey, the 10-day journey, which was there. And that really kind of still has stayed with me because clarity is something which so many of us are struggling with. I struggle with too. But meditation really helps. Yeah, meditation really kind of helps in kind of declogging and decluttering whatever whatever feelings we have, and kind of helps us focus on the important stuff.
Right. And is there some change within you that you've noticed when, before you started meditating and after?
Honestly, so I mean, of course, I can say that there has been a radical change and I've become more calmer and everything, but that does take time. Meditation is something which, of course, many people speak about, but it's also very gradual process. Like you won't see, it's not like a keto diet that you'll see results in. It does take a
Right.
bit of time because, of course, it's something which is related to your mind. So I would say that it does kind of take time. It does take time to seep in, but of course, it has benefited me immensely and has kind of made me calmer and made me more patient, I would say.
What was your first introduction to meditation?
Right. So that's very interesting because this was, I think, I was in Calcutta about 2 years back, 6, 7 years back. So I was coming back on the flight. There was turbulence. Okay? It was nothing too major. It was not the decision was not here. But there was quite a bit of turbulence, and of course, Singapore Airlines they have this. They have the in-flight entertainment, right? So
Yeah.
my mom was sitting next to me, and she kind of put some headphones, and she closed her eyes. And I was like, okay, she's sleeping during turbulence. That's not very cool, but okay. Then I saw what she was listening to. It was this track Om Mani Padme Hum, right?
Yeah.
So it was on the system itself. I was like, okay, fine, she's listening to that. Let me try that. I tried that, and it was quite calming. Honestly, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. But it was something which was really really satisfying at that moment, even though the world was seemingly crashing down. But it really helped me calm down. And then after that, it's my mother used to ask me to look at your breath, and I used to say, what does that mean? Like, what does that really substantiate into? What do you mean by looking at your breath? I mean, I know I am breathing, but why do I have to look at my breath? But I kind of understood why that happened. It was to face reality. Vipassana literally translates to seeing things as they are. So that was my first, kind of instance where I was introduced to this was seeing your own breath. And at the Vipassana course itself, we do this for the first 3 days, like entire first 3 days, which we have for the course. We're only looking at our breath, so we have to know, the subtleness of how the breath is kind of, it's touching your lips, it's going away, or how heavy is your breath, because your breath kind of analyzes everything. It was, if you're angry, you breathe faster. If you're calm,
Yeah.
it's fine. So that is ever changing, and that's obviously there from like day zero, like when you're born, till day zero when you die. That's there, and that was, I think, my first introduction. And other than that, some interviews. I think if people want to get, if the people watching this, they want to kind of get an introduction to meditation, there's this beautiful song by Jason Mraz, which is not a song, I would say it's a skit, it's a piece. It's called "Can You Hear the Birds Singing?" Right? And it's very beautiful. Like, I don't want to say what it is, but of course it can explain it itself. But it's a really good piece. And other than that, I would say another, again, musical artist, because I am very inspired by the arts, by music, of course, was Kendrick Lamar's interview with Rick Rubin, where he says that
Which one? I'm
with
so
Rick Rubin,
sorry.
Kendrick
Okay.
Lamar, yeah. So he was having an interview where he said that he meditates. Kendrick Lamar, I mean, the dude who's, I mean, how busy can he be, right? Like, you can't even imagine,
Yeah.
probably. He says that he
Yeah, he
tries to
takes the
meditate. Yeah, he says that he tries to meditate half an hour daily. And I was like,
okay.
one sec, Kendrick Lamar tries to do that. That's pretty interesting, because you never associate that guy with meditation, but it makes sense, right? Like, the lyrics which he has, the flow which he has, it's very introspective, and you
Yeah.
can't write such stuff. You can't make such music without knowing who you are. So that's why I was pretty inspired by that guy. That yeah, if he can make half an hour, then I should definitely try because I'm like probably 100 as busy as he is right now.
I get that. You know, some people find various other activities meditative, like
Yeah,
whether it's, you
absolutely.
know, gardening or
Oh, it is.
washing
It's
vessels.
therapeutic. Yeah, yeah.
They're very therapeutic. Like for me, at least they are. I've only
You-
recently started trying to, you know, grow and keep plants alive in my house.
Exactly,
And
exactly. That's so cool.
I find washing vessels very therapeutic. And
Yeah.
it's like I tell my mom,
Even
it's
during
like
the
it's a,
pandemic, though,
sorry?
even during the pandemic, even now, do you still find it therapeutic washing dishes?
I think I found it now to be far more than before.
Oh,
Earlier,
that's
I
cool.
remember I was not allowed to wash vessels. My grandmother was always worried. She said, your hands will get rough. You
Yeah,
have soft hands. And I
tough.
used to love washing vessels. And she never let me. So every time I used to, you know, run to the opportunity. I was like, I'll wash the vessels. But now I think, yes, I was consistent for a while, but then I lost it in the middle. And this
Yeah,
one time I had like 7 days worth of vessels to wash. But it was so calming when I did.
right, right.
So it
So,
is, I
yeah.
still think it is. I would never disagree with that. However, what kind of activities do you have like that which are meditative or therapeutic for you?
I mean, it's kind of cliched, you can say, but music is definitely really cool. Like
Oh, yeah,
it's
same.
something. It's simple, right? Like it just directly. It's no frills. I mean, of course, not all kinds of music, but whatever you prefer. Like, I mean, of course, whatever your playlist is, be it pop, be it rock, be it indie, be it bluegrass, whatever. Like, I think everybody still, people found the rituals wala jo matlab, the impersonation that was also therapeutic for some. They were listening to it on repeat because it was so cool, right? It was just मतलब क्या ही है कि अब रिलीज ही कर देते हैं ऐसा लग रहा था because it really connected with people. And of course not all music is therapeutic, some is purely for entertainment, but it does kind of calm your mind. Yeah. It just does make your mind more receptible to everything.
I'm
And but,
sure.
yeah,
I
but music
agree
is
with
one
you.
thing. Yeah, but music is one thing, but I would say definitely the other thing, which is like a peculiar thing, but since you're a photographer, probably you would agree with this, is editing photos,
Yeah.
right? Like that for me, like, when I have a photo, it's, shot raw, it's a very random ass photo. But I probably have some vision कि अच्छा इसको ऐसे ये करके इसको create करके, you can make something out of it. So that for
Yeah.
me is also very therapeutic, yeah, because मतलब 2-3 घंटे उसमें you can spend it, and then when you see the result, when you see कि अरे यहाँ से इससे वो बन गया, then it's like that's so cool.
Oh yeah, my favorite is fixing either photos that are extremely underexposed or
Yeah,
photos that are extremely overexposed or photos where the colors are just horrible.
exactly. So that's, and I think, and of course, because color therapy, I mean, we know we've studied color therapy and how it affects the brain, because it really does, right? Like when we see
Yeah.
colors and when we want to make, of course you can, and it's done in filmmaking and it's done in everything else as well. Colors do make you feel a certain way. So that has kind of been a very big, something which has been very therapeutic for me. And be it on your phone, be it on your, I mean, you can use any app, but I think I have found that very consistently say. And podcasts as well. Podcasts, I mean, uh, there are multitude of podcasts, man. It's just
Yeah.
exploded. I think the scene has just gone like boom all across the world. And it's great. It's really so encouraging.
I'm really glad that something is able to pick up in this time of too many videos,
Yeah.
too many photos.
Yes,
Something I feel like I have a sense of, you know, radios coming back, so I'm quite happy.
it is. It is.
That's
It
how I
is.
look at it.
There will be a
It
visual
and that
fatigue. Like, there will be a visual fatigue, I would say, or like that's what people are saying. Like, it's there was this beautiful term which I learned on this thing on I think it was on a podcast. It was itself on Netflix. It was called visual diarrhea. Like, when you're scrolling through Netflix, right? When you
yeah,
do like a very heavy scroll, then you don't see anything. You don't see the titles. You just see colors, right? You just
yeah.
see colors all around you, like, random the titles, and of course how the beautiful algorithm which works for Netflix, and you just see the titles, you just see the colors, and then they said that it's visual diarrhea, and someday, I mean, it is. People are saying that it might just have a decrease or have a decline because कितना देख लोगे यार Netflix, कितना देख लोगे Prime, तो वो तो है ही
Yeah.
एक चीज, that's definitely there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Coming back to stuff that's meditative,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who can't meditate?
Someone who can't meditate, I think, again, that's a very difficult question because, I mean, it's really to each his own. But I would say, when you're, and of course, I'm not certified in any way. I've just done the course for 10 days. So I'm not like preaching anything. I'm just saying it from my experience. But something which really helps is good sleep. Like, funnily enough, if you have, let's say, good sleep the previous day, then if you wake
Yeah,
up early in the morning or late at night, I think these two time slots, if you can kind of isolate yourself, I mean, switch off the lights and everything. And for some, music works. For some, let's say, a nice, people use the Calm app. I haven't used the app Calm app. But if you can just
yeah. For
sit
some people, it's
and,
like a nice shower or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And I think looking at your breath, I think that's the first key. Like, then after that, of course, you can get into techniques which are there. But looking at your breath, again, it's very, very tricky because you have so many thoughts which keep on coming. And they will. That's the thing. It's not, thoughts won't subdue. It's just that we have to recognize that we have these thoughts. There's this beautiful poem by Rudyard Kipling. It was called If. And,
Yeah,
where he said, and of course, I was a kid back then, but this line really stuck with me that if you can deal with triumph and disaster, then treat those two imposters just the same. So I think when
yeah,
a person kind of deals with both triumph and disaster, that's when you actually, I mean, that's when you've reached a very huge milestone because it's not easy. Like, people say, कि यार उसके सर पे चढ़ गया success, या फिर जो the failure which was there वो भी सर पे चढ़ जाता है. So वो
yeah.
सर पे नहीं चढ़ना चाहिए, and वो सर पे नहीं चढ़ेगा जब आप उसको can declog it with meditation. So I think techniques, if you mention techniques, then I would say shutting off the lights, of course, a hot shower, cold shower, that's definitely there, and keeping our phones away. That's a big thing.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot in a lot of for at least a key to a good night's sleep is just keeping the
Yes,
devices away.
yes, racism.
It's not,
Yes,
but then there are some situations where meditation doesn't help.
yeah.
Uh, where it could be something very serious or something, but then obviously if we're talking about how nothing is serious and everything is serious, uh, but what do you do in a situation where you can't meditate it away, or
So, Sanjay, so what I think meditation is sometimes seen as passivity. Like, if you're meditating, you're passive, and like you're like कि उसको होने दो, जो हो रहा है होने दो. It's not really that much of जो हो रहा है होने दो, but अगर वो हो रहा है मैं उसको कैसे deal करूं. It's that because meditation obviously won't solve. Like, for example, if there's a fire burning, right? There's a fire burning, or if there's a virus spreading,
yeah,
people can't meditate and be like, no, no, it'll get over, it'll be fine. That's not this meditation. Ultimately, vipassana means seeing things as they are. So first you have to recognize that. But what vipassana, and that's what we want in the course itself, is that it helps you deal with stuff. So for example, if there's a situation, meditation obviously won't solve it, but it'll give you the arsenal, the mental arsenal to help you solve it. So I think meditation itself isn't like what ends stuff, but it can give you some strength in tough times like these.
right, I agree. So what do you what is something that you're able to let go of, and what do you still struggle with?
I mean, first of all, things that I struggle with, of course, letting go would be memories. Like, I think that's just such an innate part of human beings. And memories of, let's say, I think primarily would be relationships. Because relationships really have this effect on us, which is on a very deep level, I feel. It's like,
Yeah.
not on the very surface level. And it kind of just, it has a very deep impact. So letting go of something like that, something which is so deep and innate, that's a challenge. That's a really big challenge. Like, you can't let go of memories that kind of haunt you, or pleasant memories. Like, of course, you wouldn't want to get rid of them, but it is difficult. Yeah, that has been one thing which I think is a struggle, honestly. But what I have been able to deal with is something which is like as trivial as, let's say, hate comments, or like people
Yeah.
just backbiting, or people being
Yeah.
vile. So that is something I think which I have kind of tried to overcome. But memories are a very difficult thing, and I'm sure people who kind of meditate themselves, they will agree that it's not the easiest to and of course you shouldn't really erase it कि नहीं मतलब ये eternal sunshine of the spotless mind and all कि मेरे को वो पूरा नष्ट कर देना है. But then of course some memories do hurt, right? So that has been a struggle of letting it go. Like, in terms of letting it go, since that's what we're discussing, that has been a bit of an issue. Yeah.
Right, and I get what you're saying very well. Where it stems from being able to accept it rather than escape from it or
Yeah.
delete it completely. But we as a generation tend to react more often than we respond to things.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what's your take on that?
I mean, it's definitely something that happens. Yeah, like it's such a and I think another enabler in this case is that reacting and not responding is that it's so instant. Like it's so quick. For example,
Yeah,
back in the day, let's say when we were writing, if some forms of informal communication or like written communication was a letter. So
yeah,
of course it would still be a stinker, like nobody is denying that. But now it's just become such a easy way to, and like as you were mentioning, as we were having a discussion about trolls as well, online trolls. It's so
yeah,
easy to write a hate comment or write something which is like negative. Well, in an instant
yeah.
you can
Record a video about it.
exactly. So that I think the fact that it's so instant, that's I think one of the caveats of not just social media but how fast the world has become. Right, because pehle to you had matlab when you're writing a letter, of course matlab people used to write it with blood and all of that. My god, that's another story. But but yeah, like that used to be something which is the response which you have, not just in terms of letters but even with people itself. The social media is kind of designed, and of course whatever notification whatever we have, it releases some like hormones. I don't know the exact name of the hormone which is released. I think dopamine, which is released whenever you get a notification. So that is always kind of making you tick. That
Yeah,
has kind of become a part of our system so much that we want to react to it immediately. Look at Instagram stories. Instagram stories mein the app has dictated ki acha you can do a 100 wala thing, you can do a heart, you can do a congratulations, you can do a smiley, you can do a laugh. It's just become so easy, right? Like you don't even have to think. For example, if I write something that if Sangamatra has won a Nobel Prize, I'll immediately swipe up and do that. That's reacting, like so that's I think become this instantaneous fact is something which is of course enabled not just by social media but majorly by it. And the way you can get rid of it or you can kind of curtail that is thinking a bit. And of course there's been an ancient technique you should count till 10 before you say something angry, or you should count some
yeah.
more. But it's really like you should value your words and think about what you say before you do that. But I think it does, reacting and responding does happen a lot.
I feel like both social media and meditation would walk hand in hand in terms of knowing whether or not you can control a situation.
Yeah,
And your sense
absolutely.
of what control you have over things with meditation or even with social media. Like, what sense of control do you have on responding to a hate comment or putting up something if you want to stand up against something? Or because it's so easy to do it. But like
Yeah,
you said, that sense of validation every time you get a like, I'm sure you have it, I have it a lot. I know
yeah,
that.
of course. It's definitely.
And it's only I think only recently I've tried to, or maybe sometime last year or last year I only started then try to calm down and go like, okay, this is not what it is.
Yeah,
i've always
yeah,
I've always known that digital equations don't mean anything. In that
yeah,
sense, it's more important to have an offline thing, but that's my school of thought.
yeah.
However, it doesn't have a lot of people don't agree with.
Another kind of just backtracking to reacting and responding, it just struck my mind the beautiful episode of Hassan Minhaj where he spoke about compassion. Like
Yeah,
how many things can you be compassionate towards, because there are so many things which demand your attention and all of them are important in their own
important.
right. Yeah, but then it's really according to your acumen and how kind of you see things and what you believe in, that it's important to let it affect you. Because again, control, how much of control can you have? Like that is one thing which has been a very pivotal question, that how much of control do I have over something which is happening over there? And by all means, like we have to make sure that action is given.
I don't think that when we were talking about meditation and letting go, I don't think that trying to uh, like spirituality will always help. I don't
Yeah,
know if I make sense. I don't think it
I mean,
always helps.
as in spirituality
Sorry,
again. So like yeah,
what I
so
mean to say is,
yeah, please.
sorry, I'm so sorry. I just want to finish this. What I mean to
Yeah,
say is that I know that it's a step-by-step thing, so that you move from responding, like you get to responding from reacting.
yeah,
I feel like that helps in the broader sense, but like, also talking about being impatient or trying to find a solution to something that it may not
yeah,
help with. It does
yeah.
not, it takes a lot of practice to get to that.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, again, so I think another concept which I think is very important to talk about is penance, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's something which, let's say, spirituality may some people what they believe is, I have to punish myself into meditation, or I have to think of something like if there is a situation, it's like you kind of blame yourself, and I think that's been such a big issue with spirituality is that some people force themselves like some
Yeah.
people are like I have to do this about myself. I am
Yeah.
what will God say, or what will what will I say, because most of the time you're with yourself, and you're kind of thinking about how you can let yourself down. So I think that penance
Yeah.
really needs to go. The spirituality made that, because that's a major part of it. But that shouldn't
Yeah.
be the case, because spirituality should really be a way of life, and it should be how we're dealing with stuff. And of course, these are very ideal and very good terms, but it does take a lot of effort for people, especially because we have to be connected, right? Like you have to be online, I have to be online. I mean, my work is on Instagram, right? Like that's
Yeah.
literally
Same.
where, yeah.
Yeah.
So where I'm kind of getting the bucks, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
so that's important, and I think not blaming yourself for reacting the way you do is also very important. Acknowledge it, but don't blame. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I do agree with you for the most part on it. I feel like maybe the whole concept of penance is because when you talk about, punishing yourself,
Yeah,
it takes away from the whole point of
yeah,
trying to be one with yourself, because
exactly.
then you're harming yourself at the end of the day. But, I feel like penance should be something when it comes to hard work or
Yeah,
trying to push yourself to be patient or trying to push yourself to get rid of your vices.
yeah,
And it's probably an everyday effort. It takes
it is
it's every drop makes an ocean, so it will take time. So, but then
absolutely.
you have to also be mindful about it. But then mindfulness itself has so many definitions.
What it does.
How do you perceive it?
So I perceive it. I think one major thing would be equanimity, right? Like this would be. So what we were taught in the course, what we were taught in Vipassana was craving and aversion. These were the two
Hmm.
things that were, that were basically govern our mind, which is craving. You're craving something, or
Hmm.
it's you have aversion or you have hate. So I think when you, kind of balance those things out, I think that's when you're mindful, when you're understanding what you're doing, and I think that starts with looking at your breath, because see, your breath is a
Yeah.
very big indicator. Your breath
Yeah.
is a very big signal, so to speak. Like it's a very big. You can look at yourself. You're like, okay, fine. I'm breathing like this. Let's say, another example that I like to give regarding mindfulness is when somebody says, take a deep breath, deep breath. What does that do? Why do we say that? Right? It's been something which we say it, let's say, before we go live on stage, or before, like, we have to take a penalty shot, because it kind of does affect how how the oxygen flow is happening. We want more blood to be circulated. So
Yeah.
that has a very deep link with breathing. I think when you're breathing, when you can acknowledge the fact that you're breathing and you're aware of it, when you're currently in the now, that's when I think you're mindful. And you don't have to meditate, you don't have to sit on a rock in the Himalayas. But when you know that, okay, fine, I'm here, this is who I am, this is, again, these are very, very difficult to attain. You Not everybody is Buddha. Buddha is, again, Gautam Buddha was Buddha. Anybody can be Buddha. It was not like it was something that he was. It's not he was the only Buddha ever. Buddha is basically
Yeah.
when you attain nirvana. And nirvana,
Yeah.
again, it's a very, again, I mean, I definitely am not, that, let's say, capable or that knowledgeable to speak on nirvana and what it is, or moksha, and how you can kind of transcend everything and get rid of the trials and tribulations of life and death and all of that. That's really advanced, I would say. But definitely, I think just being aware of your surroundings and just feeling your breath, that's really important, and that's what mindfulness is for me.
Yeah, I get it, but I see so many different definitions of it. Someone says be mindful of what you say to someone, or be
Yeah,
mindful of their feelings, or be
yeah,
mindful of your own feelings,
yeah,
or like you said, be mindful of your own breath. So
yeah.
there's so many different variations of it.
Sure. I mean,
So it's, huh?
so that's why I think for me, I mean, for in my perspective, I think of course, being mindful yourself also helps you gauge what mindfulness is for others. Like when we
Yeah,
become more patient, like I remember when this lockdown was being announced, people were like, "Shit, I hope," especially in Bombay, because I mean, I've lived in Bombay, and you know how the rat race is over there, and
yeah,
you know how I think that's where mindfulness is at its least. Like that's where mindfulness is a joke in the rat race of Bombay, not in, like in a particular place in Bombay, but in just the
hmm,
general bhagdor wali zindagi. Because then you don't give a fuck if somebody's boarding the train or not. You want to go there,
yeah,
and it's just become a very me thing. So again, it's we've been tuned to think about me, I, survival for me. But it's also about some compassion. And I'm so happy that people, let's say, donated for the first time. Like for example,
yeah,
I donated money for the first time to an organization. So that was, I think, even that's something which is mindful, right? Like, or somebody has
yeah,
done something for something for the others. I think that's also being mindful, is when you are not the answer to everything. And that's, again, I'm struggling with that. Yeah, that's not very easy to attain. That's not something that you will get at an instant, but
yeah.
it's definitely something that people should get to achieve, and this is a good opportunity, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably is. I feel like to each their own, and I think
Yeah,
everyone's minds are different. So when
they
they're
are.
mindful, it will mean multiple things. It doesn't have to be the same thing.
Yeah,
Do you think speaking of being mindful, a big
yeah,
practice that people say for with when it comes to being mindful is watch what you say online. Remember that it's online and not offline.
yeah,
And so that could hold true to hate, it could hold true to supporting someone, where they say just liking a photo doesn't mean you're supporting an artist, for example.
yeah,
It if that's the max you can do, great, but they say that. So do you think we're able to distinguish between what we see or say online and what we see or say beyond the screens?
yeah, for sure. So, I mean, on that, I would say that, what we have been harping about in terms of how instant everything is, in terms of, let's say, the world of social media. So I think online, it is very easy, it's instant, and for the most part, it's permanent. So I think misuse is a big part of the social media game, in terms of how you interact and how you kind of have a conversation on social media. So you do have to be very mindful, because
Yeah,
it's on the cloud. People say that social media is all, internet is on the cloud, but actually it's very, very rooted. Like, most of our internet is actually via the oceans and the seas. There's a beautiful
yeah,
episode in books about that. So it is a very, it is still very permanent, I would say, in that regard. You can't really delete everything which you have, and in which case, being offline, I think, is more. It's kind of better to have a conversation offline. For example, let's say breaking up, right? Breaking
yeah,
up would be, I would say, much better. Of course, phone is also not the best way, but since we're here,
yeah, or
since we're
text or
like,
email.
yeah, text or email, that's just so savage, right? Like, that's just being an asshole.
Yeah,
So that, yeah, so that is kind of, that I think is also a major aspect of it, yeah, because then if you're relying so much on that instant thing, ki, हाँ, मेरे को instant करना है, ये करना है, वो करना है, it just boils down to the gratification that we get and how easily we can get to find it as well.
yeah, I'm sure, but then there's so much. When I say this whole thing about distinguishing, right, a lot of people think that because they're putting up something online they actually stand for it, but they don't.
Yeah,
It They don't even know what it is, or
yeah, yeah,
if it's so easy to hate on someone or misuse that information, like you said with the video. uh, but then it's also that sense of we don't take that step back and look at that situation.
yeah. It's
And
difficult to, it's really difficult to, because yeah, so I think because also peer pressure, I wouldn't say that your peers really force you to do it, but because you see it happening, you feel that, okay, mere social media pe to kisi ko wo nahi karna chahiye, like nobody should object. So that becomes, even if you don't believe in a cause, you still believe
yeah,
ki nahi, meko, I have to kind of make my marks. People should check, ki, acha, I am, people see my profile, they're like, okay, tick mark, you're cool, you're good to go. So I think that mentality has crept in, and I wouldn't say that's very detrimental, but of course it has been taking away the individuality in terms of what you believe and what you think, because it's very
Yes.
easy to, so now because it's easy to kind of share a story or share anything, so the sharing again, it's because it's become so trivial, I would say. It's kind of sometimes somewhere where the intention is not correct, it loses importance.
It does, and I come from a school of thought which I'm sure that people may not agree with, but I'm okay with it. It's the fact that I feel like people online, whether you're an influencer or an influential figure or a politician or an actor or a person or a photographer, videographer, whoever, you have a certain level of influence.
Yeah,
So
for sure,
everyone
I
does. So you
completely agree.
can't. I'm not saying don't have fun. I'm not saying don't put up things that are funny. Don't put up. It's fine if people get offended, but I feel like we need to draw the line at if it's hate speech.
It is. I think that's something which people are just kind of getting privy with, because they are also, I mean, for example, something as simple as Instagram Reels, which has just launched.
Yeah.
There will
Yeah.
be, obviously, people will kind of use it to spread hate speech. People will
Yeah.
use that to kind of spread, to oppress other people. But I think we kind of need to, and I think, what, honestly, why don't schools and colleges speak about this? Why don't they should have, let's say we have gender sensitization programs, courses and everything which we have in schools, in colleges rather. But I think social media is also something which should be taught, right? Like it should be kind of explained as to how you can use these tools, because these tools, just imagine, it can be so important, yet it can just bog you down. So that, I think, social media, just adding back to the entire spirituality angle here, it does affect how you think and how you believe. So if there are, let's say, I mean, places or where people can talk about this as to how you can use these tools, I think it's very important. Yeah, and I think if there are initiatives, I'm not aware of such, but I mean, if you can tell me about something, things about social media and how we can use it in a better way, that's very
But
important.
I think talking about it, I mean, colleges would be comparatively easier, but with schools, changing their entire curriculum takes years. It takes years
Yeah,
to change your curriculum. We had textbooks which, when I was in school, I had a textbook which the last edition was 2000, and I was reading it in 2009
yeah,
or 2010. That's 10 years. So much has changed.
absolutely.
So it was, I feel like that will take a lot of time, but then also it may also makes more sense to educate about the boon and the bane that is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it's just become this currency, right? Like, likes are no longer likes. It's become a currency where we evaluate each other, and of course, that's detrimental. But the point is that you should know about it. You should know the good side. You should know the bad side. And
Yes.
if schools can remove secularism and nationalism via their this thing, via their via just the law
Little
and
busy
act.
doing that right now, but I don't think it's the schools that are doing that. It is
It's not. It's the
the
board.
it's the MHRD, which is
Yeah,
the Ministry of
exactly.
Human Resources and
human
Development.
human resource development. Exactly. So I think social media should be, in my opinion, a part of the curriculum. Even, let's say, for, of course, not for, like, probably even for middle school people or teenagers, but also for people in 11th and 12th, because that's also a big time when you entering college, or probably you're going to
Yeah.
get employed. How do you kind of, people, your employers do check your social media, let's admit it. Like, that has been a very big gateway, so to speak, about who you are. So I think it's very important to kind of take a check on that as well.
Right. Why do you think we find it easier to, coming back to letting go, why do you think we find it easier to let go of things when it's not directly affecting us? Do you think compassion has a role to play in something like that?
It does, yeah. Like, I think compassion, it's just becoming, because things that are not affecting us. What I'm really observing now is the fatigue which is set in. Like,
Yeah.
now people are like, ki, yaar, kitna mein karu, I'm not bothered only. Again, just kind of linking back to Hassan's video, which is obviously
Yeah.
on YouTube and Netflix as well. So
Yeah.
he really spoke about compassion as compassion as a fuel, and how it really people are running out of it because they're like, yaar, kya मैं करूँ, किसके लिए करूँ. So वो मतलब, things are, if things aren't really affecting you, like, now you've shielded yourself. But the point still remains that if you pick out some things that really affect you, or you really want to be vocal for, then you can choose that. But now it's just become, I think, fatigue, I would say, is a big answer to that.
I feel like it's causing a lot of apathy also.
It is.
And I wouldn't probably force someone to not be apathetic, but then I would wonder why, what is causing that, and I would probably try to help with it.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, you see something happening to someone you don't know. Your reaction to it is there, but it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't drive a person to actually talk about it or speak up against it.
Yeah, for sure.
But then when it hits, I was saying this thing to my friend that things hit harder when they hit closer to home. So how do you draw that distinction? Because at the end of the day, if there's anything that is wrong according to your moral spectrum, it is still wrong just because it's not affecting you.
Yeah, so I think that's apathy and fatigue. When those things are combined, it really takes. And of course, the fact that we're also on so many platforms. Yeah, like if you're talking about, let's say, things which you see offline happening in the real world, and then you kind of observe it online, there's a marked difference. Yeah, because of course people want to feed their own propaganda. People want to feed what side of the story they want to speak about, right? So I think. Too much of it is detrimental, I would say, if you're following too much of it, because people are satisfied that they're getting their clicks, they're getting their likes. But you also have to kind of sometimes think about where you can draw the line. So I think for you yourself, it's important to draw the line between what's happening in the real world, and because we are getting so much of it right now, in these days, where we have access to it and we have the time too. So I think that's also becoming a very concerning thing.
Yeah, a lot of my friends I've seen have, deactivated their social medias.
Yeah.
Like even me, when I'm ending these live streams next week, I will be uninstalling Instagram. I'll come online only when I have to post something, and that's it. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm tired.
Instagram, I have a very love-hate relationship with Instagram, honestly, because because it's just become, even with, if you just look at the app, right? If you just look at how the app is designed, especially with Reels now, and that's why I've kind of brought it up, is that every tab where you go, every tab, of course, you can say that in other apps as well, but there is some visual element which is constantly popping. There is something very, very big and very visual in every single column which you go to, probably except DMs. So that is why, because we as a design principle as well, we're addicted to something that's blinking. We're addicted to something that's going on. So that itself, I think their engineers have cracked the code, because people are watching it. People love that shit. And just look at the timing of how they got rid of I mean, TikTok was, let's say, it was kind of banned temporarily, I guess, in India, and then they kind of got it the same model and they've done it. So they've become this giant app, this just giant galaxy of good shit and so much of bad shit. Like, so that's just, it's spiraling. And for some people, including me, it just gets overwhelming at times.
Oh yeah, I mean, I caved and got TikTok to promote the pod, but then as soon as I got it, they banned it in 48 hours.
In 48 hours?
In 48 hours. So this is my luck. But anyway, so we're reaching the end of the episode. Before we close, I want you to tell us a little bit about your podcast, which you've been running for a while.
Yes. Oh wow, that's great. So yeah, it's been running for a long time now, but I haven't been very consistent because podcasts won't be very encouraging in terms of numbers, because not many people, want to kind of, and I think India is still nascent in that way, but it is difficult to kind of get it going. But I've been carrying it on for about 2.5 years now, 2.5 to 3 years. It's called That's What She Said. It's there on Spotify, Anchor, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, all of that. And it's basically about, I have spoken about a few things in the past which were not related to film or music, but now my focus is on those two things, which is either film or music. So because that is something, of course, I do advertising. Advertising is something, and I think that's there in my bio as well, that I mentioned in which I gave it to you as well. So that is, of course, something that's my bread and butter. That's what I love doing. But film, I'm really passionate about, and I love speaking about film, and whatever little knowledge I have, I will have to share and kind of debate and discuss. So I try to upload episodes as often as I can.
Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being so patient and helping me stay patient.
I think
It
that
was,
was the trick. Yeah, that really took the cake. Yeah, this time.
yeah, it did. I feel like it was just meant to be that I just go
Meant to
like,
be.
what the hell is happening?
And
But yeah,
just think about this. It was you said, "Ki, acha, this is the last time we're trying. Let's see." And then
yeah,
it kind of worked out. So that was beautiful. I think.
yeah, it was, and I'm
Mhm.
glad you were a part of it. And thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I'm so grateful to you for
Thank you so
doing
much.
this. See you. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that was Shrivar, and I hope you had a good time. I hope this provoked some thought or made you feel certain things. If whatever they were, if you want, you can let me know. And this is Tech 29 of Stories with Shastri.